Good morning, beloveds. I'm trying a new thing with my senior cat who he gets a thyroid medication in his ear, and then we give him a second breakfast. Um, the problem is that he has vultures of his siblings that will come and hawk him for it. And he hasn't been eating the second breakfast recently, so the other day I had the time, so I came in and I gave him the second breakfast, and I waited with him because we hadn't been doing that recently. And so today I did his ear gel, and then I came in and I brought his, because he happened to be in the same room that I do this in. And so I brought it in, and he seems to be enjoying it. So I'm trying to keep an eye on the vultures at the same time. The problem with the thyroid is when you have a hyperactive thyroid, it can make you very, very thin. So he should weigh about 17 pounds, and he weighs about 11. He's also 16, so, he's a senior. I won't call him elderly, but he acts like it sometimes. All right, it is March 22nd. Our title is Omnipresence. And the universe is a spiritual system of complete consciousness, entire wholeness, the sum total of which is present everywhere. We are both scientifically and inspirationally, spiritually and philosophically in accord with the great institutions, the spiritual relevance of all the ages that have always announced that God is over all, in all, through all, and is all. There is not God and something else. There is only God, and God is in everything, constituting the only reality to anything that is, proclaiming itself as all things. Therefore, God knows things only as itself. There is an intelligence in everything, from the smallest atom to whatever we think of as big, and that intelligence must of necessity respond to us intelligently. Then, automatically, we will have to assume that it can only respond to us at the level of our belief in it. Oh, okay. Sorry. I got lost. Okay, let me try that sentence again. Then, automatically, we will have to assume that it can only respond to us at the level of our belief in, knowledge of, belief about, acceptance and embodiment of, and the identification with it. In other words, God is all there is, but to each of us individually, the God that is all there is must be the God believed in. Since there is but one life present everywhere, I must be in that life and of it. It must flow through me. It must be what I am. Therefore, I accept this omnipresence as something real, definite, immediate. At the very center of my own being, I realize that the divine presence at the center of my own consciousness, I recognize a transcendent principle forever animating, sustaining, revitalizing, recreating, guiding, directing, inspiring. There is within me that which knows what to do and impels me to act in accord with its perfect law and order and its complete peace. This I accept, and even as I affirm it, I know that this omnipresence is alive and awake and aware within me. And behold, I am with thee and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest. Genesis 28:15. Okay. Every now and again, Ernest will make me crazy. And today is one of those days. I don't have an issue with what he says. I have an issue with the commas. Which is why I got lost. Commas, not periods. He will... And I do it too. Because when I'm trying to list the qualities of God, and that's where I'm getting into trouble in this one, is he's listing out these qualities and he's separating them with commas, and I'm expecting a period and he's not giving me a period, he's giving me a comma. So, omni means all. Presence. So omnipresence. A core basic tenet of science of mind is God is all there is, which means God is omnipresent. There is nowhere that you can go that God is not, which may be the good news, maybe the bad news. There is it may be a Nasruddin story, but it does come out of Islam, and where a master, well, I mean, it could be a Buddhist koan too. There's probably variations of it, but basically the students of the Imam were given a chicken, and they were told to kill the chicken where God couldn't see them. And everybody went and, did their business. Then one student comes back with a chicken under his arm. And the student and the Imam goes, okay, I gave you instructions. And he says, well, yes. And I went here, and then I realized that God was there, and I went here, and I realized that God was there, and I even went into the closet, and I realized God was in there. And I was like, and finally I just realized God's everywhere, so there's nowhere for me to kill the chicken. And the Imam went, you have learned the lesson. There's nowhere God is not. Which, depending on your relationship with God, can be, and this is why I said this is the good news, bad news. Depending on your relationship with God, that can be wonderful, because it means that no matter where you are, no matter what situation you are in, God is always there, which means you can lean on God or spirit or the quantum field, whatever word you want to use, if God is falling hard on the ears. The bad news is if you don't have a great relationship with God, then you literally can't get away from God. Which then leads me to ask you to reevaluate your relationship with God. Is your relationship with God your own, or is it what you have been taught it should be? Which is one of the reasons why we do so much deprogramming in science of mind. It's like all of these things that you have been taught that God is, no. God is not a great accountant in the sky. God does not have a great book with names written in it. Well, I mean, God might, because God's everywhere. God is in the book. But your name, God isn't going to keep you out of anywhere because your name's not in a book. Because the problem is God is everywhere. So there's nowhere that God could put you that you are not in the presence of God. And there's nowhere that you can go that God won't be there. And because we believe that God is creative and harmonious and peace and joy and all of that, then God being everywhere is the good news. The universe is a spiritual system of complete consciousness, entire wholeness, the sum total of which is present everywhere. There is nowhere God is not. There is nothing that is outside of God. We are both scientifically and inspirationally, spiritually and philosophically in accord with all of the great institutions, meaning science, philosophy, religion, spirituality, the spiritual revelations of all the ages that have always announced that God is all over, in all, through all, and is all. There is not God and something else. Jesse actually ended his talk yesterday with that. It's one complete system, because if it wasn't one complete system, it'd be two. There is only God. and God is in everything, constituting the only reality to anything that is, proclaiming itself as all things. Therefore, God knows things only as itself. Okay, so constituting the only reality that there is, meaning that no matter what the situation is, God is there and it can get better. And if that's not a cause for hope, I don't know what is. But I have a good relationship with God. So it is hopeful for me. There is an intelligence in everything, from the smallest atom to whatever we think of as big. And that intelligence must of necessity respond to us intelligently. If you read science, it's pretty interesting that electrons in atoms respond intelligently. Like the smallest part, there's actually, I'm not even going to go subatomic, but like electrons respond intelligently. If electrons can respond intelligently, then intelligence goes all the way down. Then automatically we will have to assume that it, capital I, can only respond to us at the level of our belief in. Okay? And that's where I got lost. So automatically we have to assume that it can only respond to us at the level of our belief in. All right. Now, I did not have children. So this is hypothetical, but you can also use it in with small children and four-leggeds with fur. Because the way I have always responded to children is I do not respond to them on their level. I'm not going to dumb it down for them. I have always treated them as a whole, completely realized person. And they tend to respond to me by up-leveling. And I have watched them, I have watched children do this. Not necessarily with me, but interactions with different people, like at family gatherings and stuff. And you watch one person baby talk a child, and then the child responds, baby. And then you watch another person talk to the child as if they were a whole, complete, realized person. Not necessarily an adult, because they're using words within their category. So they're not using great big, 15-syllable words. And then you watch that very same child that responded like a baby to this one respond like a complete and whole person to this one. And that's kind of what God does to us. If we baby talk God, God's going to baby talk us. But if we respond like a creative, intelligent, rational person to God, then that is the way God is going to respond to us. Try it. It's fascinating to watch. It's fascinating to watch that. All right. Okay. So then automatically we will have to assume it can only respond to us at the level of our belief in, the knowledge of, feeling about, acceptance and embodiment of, and the identification with it. So all of the crap that we're putting on God, God is having to respond through that. So it behooves us to not do that. Have a reasonable, rational, adult conversation with God. Respond to God in God's nature. Respond with creativity, with harmony, with joy, with peace, with love. And God will respond back in that way, because that's God's nature. When we respond with anything else, the begging, the pleading, the what have you, that's not God's nature. And God's kind of like, I don't know what to do with this. So I'm going to have to down level my response because you have not up leveled your request. In other words, God is all there is, but to each of us individually, the God that is there, that is all there is, must be the God believed in. There's a, He's called the Naked Pastor. And basically, I hate to use the word cartoonist, but that's kind of, he's an artist in the cartoon medium. And I'm not saying cartoonist is a bad thing. I just don't know how to classify his work to make it make sense this way without showing it to you. So I encourage you to go look up the Naked Pastor. But basically, he had a falling out with his faith. And he was a pastor. And so now he is using his artistic medium to convey these ideas. And one of them is he had a God in a throne and a bunch of people, and they all look the same, including God. And it's like, oh, see, God looks like God. Yeah. You literally create God in your own image. So if you are not happy with the way God looks and acts, that's on you. Ooh, straight talk. Yeah. If you are willing to see God in every being that you look in the eyes of, then God is going to look like what God is, which is an amazing divine pattern. A pattern. A myriad of multiplicity in the one. But if God looks like you and acts like you, that's not a God I want to know. Unless you happen to be, this amazing saint. And I know a couple of those, but most of us, I don't want God to look and act just like me. I am a reflection of God, but God is so much more than me. I want to believe in something bigger than me. And that's what I mean. Since there is but one life present everywhere, I must be in that life and of it, and it must flow through me. It must be what I am. Therefore, I accept this omnipresence as something real, definite, immediate. Let me say that again. Something real, definite, and immediate. It is right here, right now, right where I am. Which means it is also right where you are, right now, as you. At the very center of my own being, I realize the divine presence. At the center of my own consciousness, I recognize a transcendent principle forever animating, sustaining, revitalizing, recreating, guiding, directing, and inspiring. He likes to list all those qualities of God. And every time he uses different words. But they all mean the same thing. There is within me that which knows what to do and impels me to act in accord with its perfect law and order and its complete peace. When I act within the nature of God, then I get what I ask for. Now, does it look exactly like I ask for? Probably not. But that's because I'm willing to say this or something better, this or something more. To recognize that while I am a reflection of God, God is so much bigger than me. And God might have a bigger idea than I do. And I am willing to accept that. This I accept, even as I affirm it. I know that this omnipresence is alive and awake and aware within me. And he says it in Genesis. And behold, I am with thee and will keep thee in all places, whither thou goest. That is a promise that God made. God created us out of itself. We are literally made of God's stuff. There's nowhere God is not. Down to the very cells of your body, which means anything is possible. So our mission today, should we choose to accept it, is to accept God as something real, definite, and immediate. Not out there, right here. But also all around, in, through, as. And that's why we pray that way. That's why we treat as that way. Because we recognize that God is literally everywhere. And if you think too hard about that, it'll blow your mind, and that is a good thing. All right, beloveds. I am going to move into the process of my day, and as always, I encourage you to do something loving for yourself, do something kind for yourself, do something compassionate for yourself, whatever that looks like for you today, however big or small it needs to be. One act. And go from there. I'm only asking for one, but I am encouraging you to do all of them as loving, kind, and compassionate acts for yourself. If it looks like activity, it looks like activity. If it looks like rest, it looks like rest. Whatever it is that you need today. Please do remember, you are a beloved child of Spirit, in whom Spirit is well pleased, and that is our state of grace. So, do something to engage your mind and your body. Get a little sunlight. We might have weather today, so I don't know how much sun we're going to get, but get a little sun, get a little good light, especially early in the day. Drink some water and open the windows of your soul. Allow that breath of heaven to remind you you do live in heaven now. Look around and see the God presence both in you and around you, in everything you look at. And seeing as how it's spring, it might be a little easier because the birds are singing, the trees are leafing, the flowers are blooming. That's the time it's easy to see God. So, go look for God. Go look for Spirit. Go and enjoy the beauty that springtime is. And there's a book study tonight. If you're interested, you got to email info@creativelife.org to get the Zoom link for that. I think they're still doing Divine Audacity. Reverend David will be on Facebook Live with you at 5 p.m. and I will be back with you at 9 a.m. Do what you need to do to make it a wonderful day and know that you are loved. All right, beloveds, have a wonderful day.